Welcome, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a minute. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Woodward, and I am delighted to be joining you today for a great discussion with Lorraine Dipaolo. Before we get started with that discussion, we have a wonderful short documentary that we want to share with you called Another Life to Live. And I think it is about time that we jump into that documentary.
The opening scene, I envision it being a stormy beach, stormy ocean. Waves are strong and ugly, and maybe an overcast day. The opening words would be, they should have closed the beach that day.
You made it, Lorraine. We're here. Let's start with your name and what city you're in.
Yes, I'm Lorraine Dipaolo, and I live in Brooklyn, New York.
And why are we here?
Well, you're here, I believe, to take a story that I wrote about my husband and our life together, because I felt that it was the story for these times. Gordon made me very happy. He was giving, generous. He was interested in everyone, and he forced people to think beyond the current.
How did you two meet?
Well, I was working as a secretary somewhere, and I was bored, and someone said to me, "You love dancing, why don't you go and teach?" So I said, yeah, why not? So I went to Arthur Murray's in Brooklyn on Church Avenue and went up, and I said, I want to teach. And they said, okay. They hired me and said, but now you have to learn how to teach. And so the teacher of teachers walked out, and there he was, this tall, handsome, smiling guy, and I immediately fell in love. It was love at first sight.
The next scene would probably be you would receive a phone call from the medical staff. What was your first thought when you heard?
I received a phone call from this local hospital that, in fact, Gordon, my soon-to-be husband, had had an accident, that it was serious. I remember my heart started pounding because I didn't know what the extent of it was. He was an excellent swimmer. There's no way that he could have had a swimming accident. He was pulled in as a drowning victim. By the time they were able to revive him and get him to the hospital, that was when I was told the extent of his injuries. They didn't know what to do with him because of being diagnosed as a quadriplegic, meaning neck down paralysis. And spent 2 solid years as an inpatient there, consistent every day, intensive physical therapy. Visited Gordon after work every single day, and one of the great joys was seeing a finger move and a toe move. After Gordon spent his time in the hospital, we were married. Coming down that aisle was really kind of surreal. It was like the culmination of all the angst and all the couple of years and the accident. It kind of like melted away. Everyone was very happy. There just wasn't any kind of sadness. It was like forging ahead. You put your blinders on and you just move ahead. You don't really think about anything. I have to say, very rarely did we go to bed angry. The one moment of anger on my part was, he looked at me one day and he said, "I can't do this. I don't want to live my life in a wheelchair. I just can't do it." I went calm and I said, "I understand." And then I pointed my finger in his face and I said, "You owe me. You owe me. I loved you so much, and I went through all of this with you. The accident and 2 years in the hospital. So I'm going to make one request. You give me 1 year of teaching, and then whatever you want to do, I promise you, I will not stand in your way." Immediately just jumped into teaching, and that was it. Once we were kind of settled into his teaching, and we started our trips, and our first trip was to Europe, because the doctors that he had at St. Vincent's Hospital were all European residents and they had gone back to Europe. So we took 5 weeks, just the two of us in the wheelchair, and we went to each of the cities where each doctor we wanted to visit. We stayed in Belgium, we stayed in the doctor's home. We just love people, love conversation. We couldn't do anything physical, so we entertained a lot. For no occasion, we would have a party at what became the River Cafe. I mean, that just became our place to go. It was just so perfect and so beautiful. Gordon would sit at the head of that table and he would just consume the table. He loved it. And that was our life. It was a good life. That second accident took all of that away. The driving, the standing, all of that away. 2009, when he was going to lunch with football buddies, they decided not to wait for his driver and to take him down a couple of steps, and he fell. And he had injury to the exact same place that he had his original. So spent another period in the hospital. But he handled it. I don't know how he did it, but he did, and we didn't even think about it at the time.
Do you feel we finished the story?
To finish the story would be, I think you have to end it with his death. that week when I was alone with him. The whole point of this is to tell our story, but his story. And you don't end it with our being at a party. That's not the way it ended. Since I'm doing this, I would like it to be a moment of tragedy, but then recovery, and what that recovery looked like, so that it could be an inspiration. It's not to be entertainment as much as an inspiration to people who have all kinds of adversity in their life. Because this is really a tremendous love story.
Wow. With that, it is my great pleasure to welcome Lorraine to the screen and to this conversation. Lorraine, thank you so much for sharing this with us. Before we get too deep into the conversation, let me just give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us, how are you feeling after watching that again?
I watched it in over a year.
It's been a year?
No, I just haven't watched it in over a year. I haven't. It's been played all over. It's been in festivals, but I've not watched it. So, yes, it was. The film guys did a good job. They did a good job, and it really tells it all. It really tells it all. And to do this, I promise you. But anyway, yeah. So I just hope that. If I could help one person, if I could help one person out there to be able to go on, and I know that there's pain. We were very fortunate. Gordon was basically healthy, except he couldn't walk, but he was really terrific. I mean, the attitude. He never ever stopped smiling. I mean, it was really quite extraordinary. And except for that one moment when he got out of the hospital after 2 years as an inpatient. And the only reason he got to that hospital is that doctors were found to do experimental surgery because he was quad. There wasn't any movement from here down. And they pulled in these doctors from Texas, and they took a slug from his hip and they wedged it between C4-5 in the back. And then slowly that happened. And then great therapy, and he was driving a car. He was even on crutches at home, not outside. And so we traveled every year. That was our first every year to Europe, and we traveled. And he went to St. John's University to teach, and then the College of Staten Island, part of CUNY, and spent more than 50 years there in the business department, and students loved him, and we had a very good life. I continued to work, and I still do, and he, right until the end, until the very, very end, he sent an email to his colleagues and just saying, I'm not coming back, because that second accident slowly took away the ability to function. And so he went with dignity. And people say to me now, they say, oh, would you love to have him back here? Oh, no, because I knew what was coming, and it would have been horrendous after all those years of being in a wheelchair to become totally, unequivocally incapacitated. I mean, people are incapacitated, they have to, but you cope with it because you kind of segue into it, you know. But this was not that way. So in any event, it was, as Edith Piaf would say, which we love the French, we just continue to love the French. We went to France every year. Je ne regrette rien. We regret nothing.
Well, I so appreciate you sharing your story, and I know that all of the people watching today and the people who will watch the recording are really going to take so much from your story. This is my second time getting to watch it, and I'm so thankful for this. And I also got to read the blog that you wrote that shared a bit more about your story, and I still have questions. So if you don't mind, I'd love to ask you some. You were quite young when you and Gordon met, and still quite young when he had his accident. And it doesn't seem like you wavered at all in your decision to stay by his side. And what was going through your mind at such a young age? This is a lot of trauma to deal with. What were your thoughts?
I was 20 when I met him. 22, we got engaged. 24 was the accident. And I don't recall ever, Stephanie, ever even wavering 1 second. It was like you put on blinders and you just go. My mother, my father was gone by then, and I said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I said, "Absolutely." I have 2 brothers. They were very supportive, very, very supportive, and didn't argue out of it. You know what your life is going to be. You have any idea? And no. I got to tell you, in all the years, I mean, it really is almost impossible for me to say this, but it really is true. I just never doubted. We just handled it all, whatever it was, you know. I mean, I was in the hospital a couple of times for this and that or the other or whatever, but we handled it. We just handled it. I can't tell you how, why, or whether, you know, whatever, but we just did. We didn't have to seek anyone else. We handled it ourselves, period. Yeah.
It sounds like you two were quite the team. And I know that as part of being a team, you never saw yourself as a caregiver. And I would love for you to share a bit more about that. Tell me about how you viewed yourself and why caregiver was never part of your terminology.
He was my husband, my lover, my life, my heart. And the things I had to do for him to make his life easier, I never put that into a caregiver category. When I had to go and have a knee replacement surgery or whatever, I would bring in a caregiver, okay, a professional caregiver to take care of him or to be there for him. But I never put myself in that category. That I do not denigrate that. I mean, caregivers are phenomenal, but I was his wife. I was not his caregiver. I was his wife. And whatever we had to do, we just did it. We just did it like an everyday routine, helping him to bed, helping him in the bathroom, whatever I had to do. There was never any second thought about it. And I know it seems impossible. People have to say, "Oh, come on, Lorraine, you've got to be kidding. You had to have one moment when you're by yourself, when you're at the gym, when you're doing this." No. Wish I could give that to people so that maybe they'd feel better, but I'm sorry, I cannot, because it's not true. It's not true. No. All the pictures of him, he never stopped smiling. Every picture of him at the school, at the university, with his students, with his faculty, with this, with that, everything was smiling, never a frown, never. We had a good life. We had a real good life. He had his life. I had my life. He had his students. I had my clients. It just worked. It just worked. And the fact that, and the reason that I wrote the story, I didn't do it on my own. I had no intention of doing it. But a doctor that we knew at special surgery, Dr. Vod, kept telling us when he was alive, oh, you got to write your story. My God, Arthur Murray's dance teachers. And Gordon would say, get out, get out. I'm not doing that. But as soon as Gordon passed away, Dr. Vaught called me and said, stop what you're doing. Just stop. Stop everything and write your story. And I didn't take out a pencil and paper. I just sat at you know what, Steph? I have no idea how that flowed. I just did it, just typed. And it came out and I sent it to some family. And then one day I get an email from this production company with a script. He loved the story and attaches a script. Anyway, so fast forward, it didn't become a one night. There were seven camera people in my apartment, and they proceeded to for 4 days to produce what you saw, and they really did a good job. They really did a good job. Yeah, yeah.
4
They went
days.
to the ocean. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
4 days for one lifetime. Not so bad.
4 days they came. I thought they would come with one microphone and they would walk around the apartment and talk to me. That's what I thought the script was about. But oh no, they flew in the director from LA. I had Al Pacino's sound guy. I mean, and I just sat, did my work, and they would call me in. And it took that long to produce a 15-minute documentary. Yeah. It was quite an experience. We're all very proud of it. Very proud of it. Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And I love that you didn't ever view yourself as a caregiver. For others, that may sound very foreign, but I can very much relate to that. My husband's a wheelchair user. I'm a wheelchair user. So perhaps we take care of each other, and no one ever questions that we never see each other as caregivers. But I mean, husband and wife, we take care of each other. And it sounds like you and Gordon took care of each other.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that about you, Stephanie. That's great. That's
you
great.
learn something new, right? So
yes, you do every day.
How did Gordon help take care of you?
Just by loving me, just by encouraging me, with my business. He was just there. I mean, he just, there was never, we just, you know what, it has to sound abnormal. It really does sound abnormal. We never had an argument. We never had an argument. We have a discussion, but never went to bed angry, never an argument. It's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like we were in a bubble. I don't know. But we never did. People would say, oh God, you had to have some. No, we would have a discussion about things, but never a down and out fight, an angry, never angry with each other. Oh my God, that's such a foreign word to me. Such a foreign word. No, never. And again, because we were so lucky, and because again, we were very fortunate. He was not a sick person. He barely took vitamins. He didn't gain weight. I'm a cook. We entertained, but he never gained weight. And so we were very fortunate that way. And the only time that it really hit us when he had that second accident, and how weird it is that he would have been dropped exactly on C5-6, exactly where the accident happened. I mean, that's like too surreal to think about it. How could you have an accident in the exact same location? And that's what happened. But we went on, and he got weaker and weaker, but it never really showed. We just stopped driving, stopped traveling, and all that. But it was really a great life, and no regrets. And as I said, I work, and I'm of a very, very big age. All right. People say, are you going to retire? I said, number one, I don't know how to spell the word. I have no idea how to spell it. And if I did, I would spend my entire working week full-time volunteering wherever I can be helpful. And since I am working full-time, doing this with you is very important to me. And I really have to thank the Reeve Foundation for permitting me to do this, to send out my stories. And I said, if anyone wants to talk to me on a one-to-one, I am open to do that in a heartbeat.
While we're talking about how thankful we are for the Reeve Foundation, and while we are talking about incredible, strong women like you, Lorraine, I think it is very important that while everyone else might be recognizing St. Patrick's Day, we are recognizing that it is Dana Reeve's birthday today. What a great way to celebrate by having this great conversation with more women who have done great things for the spinal cord disability community. And I love that you keep on giving back in all the ways that you can. And I love that in the documentary, you said that this really is a love story and you had decades of love to share with Gordon. If you could give a tip to everyone watching, or as many tips as you want, what tips do you have to keep the love alive?
Well, that's a little bit difficult. I am basically a positive person. I never see the negative side. I really don't see the negative side of anything. Gordon used to say to students and to people, I want you to have a thought process, And I now do that as well. Keep talking to people, keep exploring. Can't tell you the number of times that I have been able to make phone calls or think outside the bubble of trying to help someone. And I say, oh, you know what, maybe I know someone like that, or maybe I know a therapist in that category or whatever. And just keep seeking help. Don't bury yourself inside yourself, because that doesn't help. I can't tell everyone you got to be positive. It's either in you or not. And there's a plus and minus side to your life. And I know that in many instances of those who are looking today, that the minus side might seem astronomical, but there has to be something on that plus side that you could grab onto and hold onto. And if you can't, then seek help. Talk to people. There's so much good that each of us can do, that you can do for yourself. If you're suffering, that's hard. I'm not going to take that away. It is hard to suffer and to feel like you are alone, but you've got to reach out to family, reach out to friends. Cannot bury your head in the sand, just cannot do that. And just keep the line of communication open in every direction. Don't shut anyone out. Ask questions, seek help wherever you can. And again, if you have 1 ounce of positivity in it, just grab it and hold on to it. Hold on to it, because that ounce of positivity will get you through an awful lot.
I love how positive you are, and it sounds like some of your positivity translated into lots of good parties. I am interested in hearing more. I myself, before COVID, was a big party girl. I love hosting a good party, and it looks like the River Cafe was your place. Can you tell us one of your most memorable events?
Well, we wanted to have big parties, and what we would do starting a number of years ago, I'm going to say 1997, we had our first party at the river. And the River Cafe is under the brook. If people don't know New York, it is under the Brooklyn Bridge, and it is a barge. The dining room is a barge, and it's right on the river overlooking Lower Manhattan and right underneath the bridge. And it's just an ideal place. So we would rent the room, and we would invite people. And sometimes it was black tie, sometimes it was a costume like Southern Plantation. And what I would do, and I would never tell Gordon, but every party I would hire entertainment. Bob Fosse, as you can see from my hat in the video, Bob Fosse is my favorite choreographer. So I went to the Bob Fosse studio and I hired the Bob Fosse dancers. And I wouldn't tell anyone. I wouldn't tell Gordon. I would just say during after dinner, I'd say, oh, hold on a second, we have some more people. And they would come out and do a show. We did flamenco, we did tango, and that was our joy. We loved it. He loved it. As you can see from the video, he loved it. So every other year, literally almost every other year, we would have a party there. And then I also did a lot of entertaining at home. We would have dinner parties, no more than 8, because Gordon would sit at the head of the table and he would hold court. and he would elicit. He was able to take the left and the right and be able to moderate back and forth. So that was really that was what we did. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you held a lot of parties while also holding some pretty good jobs. So you met dancing, but both of you went into some great careers. And I would just love to know, how did you both end up in the career paths that you did? Because I'm impressed by both of your careers.
Gordon was a college graduate when he had the accident. When he, after 2 years in the hospital, he said, "Now what am I going to do?" So a friend professor said, "Go back to school and get your degrees, get your master's and get your doctorate in international finance." That was the subject. So I worked, and he went back to school every day. He had a driver. We had a driver, a van, and he would go to school. So then when he graduated, he was offered a job immediately at teaching at St. John's University in Queens, and then a couple of years there, and then the College of Staten Island recruited him, and he joined the college, and he's been there ever since. That girl, I mean, I didn't want to go to college, and I didn't. My father did. I said, no, I just love to work. I couldn't wait to work. I would almost lie to work in the local grocery store, whatever. But I had an opportunity, and I was hired as a secretary to an executive on Wall Street. I thought I was hired as a secretary. And when I started, he said, "You have to get your license." I said, "What license? To drive?" He said, no, you have to get your license to be a broker, because you're going to handle all of our corporate accounts and trading on the stock exchange. And, oh my God, I didn't know the stock market. And anyway, that is how I started my career. And then I was recruited by Oppenheimer, and I went a number of years as a stockbroker, became a senior VP, and then left to start my own brokerage firm and my own advisory. And my clients, my first client I still have, actually, and I manage. I'm an advisor. I'm not a stockbroker. I'm an advisor, and I manage people's money.
That's
Yep, and I
quite
love it.
a surprise, from being a secretary to running everyone's money.
Yeah, yeah. It was really a very unusual situation. It was just the right place at the right time, like anything else, right place at the right time. That's it.
That sounds like a whirlwind of a career.
Yeah,
And you also traveled a lot. And I can tell you, we got some questions already coming in the chat, and we got some questions prior to when people registered about your travels. And I, as a travel connoisseur myself, am very interested in your travels. So one question that's already popped up in the chat is, where in France did you find to be the most accessible?
Very interesting. First, we traveled all the country. That 5-week journey was Belgium, France, Switzerland, Austria. It was all over. But because Gordon had learned French in the hospital with the head housekeeper, who was Madame Sagan, and she was French, and every day, so we kind of hooked on to France, and we found a chateau that was accessible, a ramp, an elevator, and the bathroom. We were able, remember, to handle more than we could now. And so we really were able to handle the accessibility. Yeah, because then, the beds were normal height, unlike today, where they're 35 inches. And I'm fighting that with the Department of Justice, that the beds in hotels should be normal height in a handicap room. Okay. So I didn't find Europe. Remember, when we did Europe, Gordon was able to do a standing transfer into the bed, a standing transfer into the car. Different after his second accident. He could not. Then he had to slide over. So we never came across a situation, and if we did, like steps, they would just carry him up the stairs in the wheelchair, period. Yeah. I hope that answers your question, sir, whoever asked the question.
And another question that came in was travel tips. I know that you did a lot of carrying over steps, but were there any tips or tricks to make travel a little bit easier that you might want to share with everyone?
Well, it's not, well, I don't know about the travel tips. Travel light, number one. You don't need to have a lot of clothes with you. I mean, I know today we do that. Plan ahead. Plan ahead. I would, at that time, I would call or send whatever teletype or whatever it was at that time, because we didn't have these cell phones, and to find out exactly, I have a wheelchair, I have a husband, is it accessible, how many steps, whatever. And I would do plan ahead. Don't assume that when you get to a place that they will handle it for you. That doesn't happen. You've got to know exactly where you're going and have a pretty good idea of how accessible it is and what kind of problems you'll have. We would rent a car, and again, I found that the Kia at that point in time was an ideal car for Gordon, but you have to do your research. You don't want any surprises when you're in Europe or any other place. We didn't travel outside of Europe. We didn't go to Asia or anything like that. But you've got to, I beg of you to plan ahead and do as much research so that there are no surprises. And if so, you can handle them.
So I read the blog where you wrote that you spent winters in Puerto Rico, you like to gamble in Vegas. You spent a lot of time, a lot of places. What were some of your favorite places to go?
Oh, that's easy. In the summer, it was France. I mean, it became France. In the winter, in every January, it was in the Caribbean, Saint Martin on the French side, obviously. And of course, Puerto Rico, because I have an affinity to Puerto Rico, because I had very close friends there, and we would go to Puerto Rico, and then we'd go to the Caribbean, and then in between time, we would go. Gordon was a big fan of the Civil War, World War II, anything that had to do with that, and so we would go to Gettysburg, or we would go to Vegas to gamble. Or we would go to Richmond, Virginia. So say that we did a minimum of, let's say, 2 to 3 trips a year, yeah. And that was because we could. When we couldn't, we said to ourselves, and I said to him, we did it. We did it all. We did it for many, many years. And we didn't say, oh God, I wish we could go. We just, you know what, when that happened, we just moved on. There is no looking back. Understand, there is no looking back. It's always forward.
I love the positivity. I love that you really took life and did everything that you guys could with it. And it sounds like you've done so much as a couple. And I'm really interested to know, Lorraine, what did you do for you time? Like, did you ever have hobbies or anything just for you?
That's it. That's a very interesting question, and it's one that I've thought about. I don't have any hobbies per se. No, I guess I am a workaholic. I mean, obviously my job, because I'm in the market, I'm there 5 days a week until 4 o'clock, whatever. It's very interesting to find out who I am as a person. Because understand, and those people out there who had the situation, let's say, Gordon and I were one. I was 20 years old when I met him, one. I never went out with the girls. I never went, oh, I'm going to theater with the girls, or I'm going to do this. No, everything we did was together. Everything. So, except for work, that was our separation, then we came back. So now I need to find out who I am. Really, who I am really is exactly what I'm doing here with you. If I could do this and I could be helpful, I mean, maybe I'm being presumptuous to say that I can help people, but I think I can. And so that is my goal. I don't have any hobbies. I would like to read, but I don't have time to read. I don't. The thing that we loved to do before was to entertain. And I probably will do that again, but it's not in my brain right now at all. Not in my brain at all. Yeah.
So I'm seeing some people in the chat love that you say no looking back, that there's always looking forward. And part of always looking forward, as you said, you're a big age right now, and aging gracefully is not always easy for, well, anyone. I'm in my 30s and I'm struggling with that some days. And I know I have bigger numbers to hopefully get to. But aging gracefully, while also living with a disability, can add some complications to
Challenges.
aging gracefully.
Oh yeah, I have to think so.
So how did Gordon handle aging gracefully, or not so gracefully, as he aged with his disability?
Number one, he was very busy with school. School was the big issue. I mean, he was a chair, chair of business, chair of this, chair of that. Very, very involved with school and in developing. And in fact, he developed actually half a dozen programs for the disabled, for overseas travel, for this, that, the other. So that was his thing. And so, anything else? I mean, there was no other hobby. He liked to read. He liked to read anything to do with, again, as I said, the Civil War or World War II, whatever. But he was just involved with his own career, with his teaching and with his school, and that was his that was his hobby, whatever. Did I answer your question? I'm not sure if I did.
Yeah. So I mean, your body changes as you age, and sometimes as you age with paralysis.
Gotcha. Okay, I had lost the train there.
No, you can go anywhere you want with this train. It's your train.
He had continued therapy out of Staten Island, where the school was. So a couple of times a week he would go for therapy there. I don't know what they did with therapy there at all. I was never there, and but I do know that he did that. But I have to say something in retrospect. When I think back, and again, I could drive myself crazy if I really nurtured this thought. He came out of the hospital and he was able to walk on crutches. He was able to do a standing transfer. He was able to drive the car. We had equipped the car, all of that. He should have, when you think about paralysis, he should have at that point been able to even go further. And I don't know whether it was lack of the proper therapist or physical therapy or whatever, but and it was fine. But when I think back now, if any patient now got to that point, I'd say, wait a minute, you got to this point, take him further. So the only thing Gordon would do at home, he would have his weights while he's watching television, and he would do that, and then of course he had his own therapy in a couple of days at the hospital. Yeah.
So it sounds like he kept it graceful.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
That's more than most people can ask for. So I think that was
absolutely. And I had never exercised young, but I lived, we live right on a park. So I started, and I have been with a trainer and exercising, I would say almost every day for my life. Yeah. And I tell people, try, get up in the morning and make that your first thing in the morning. Get out. If you can, walk. If you can't, pick up the weights. If you can, whatever you can do physically, even if you're in a wheelchair, even if you're handicapped, there are things you can do. Gordon did it. He couldn't get out of the chair, but he did things in the chair to get his morning going. And that's really important because psychologically, you've already accomplished for the day. You've already done something that you can check off for the day. And look, self-motivation is not easy. Self-discipline is not easy. Not easy to get up in the morning and go to the gym. Not easy for him to go to therapy. No, but he did it and I did it. Yeah.
Oh, believe me, Lorraine. My husband's a retired Paralympian. He wakes up and works out.
Really? Oh my God.
I stay in bed. I can tell you it's not easy to get motivated because I'm the one staying in bed saying, have a good workout, honey.
Paralympian. Oh my God. That's impressive.
I mean, it's impressive until you're the woman who feels like she's slacking because your husband's working out every day. Well, he
should have motivated you. You should have been motivated. You should have been motivated. Absolutely.
I let him work out for the both of us.
Okay. No, honey, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I am sorry. That is a cop out. That is a cop out. Yep,
Well, I'm not going to tell him you said that, because then he'll know he's right this whole time when he's been trying me to get out there with them.
yeah.
So it sounds like Gordon was really an advocate for the disability community. You said he started several programs for people with disabilities on campus. Can you tell me a little bit more
At school,
about that?
yeah. He, yes, he did, and I think he wanted to do more. But in any event, what I'm doing now is I'm going to enhance that program, and I'm going to. I want to add veterans. We don't do enough for veterans. I don't think we owe them. You know, it's like I said to Gordon, "You owe me," when he was going to, whatever. We owe them. We owe the veterans, and we owe them to provide everything. Provide a home, provide a job, provide incentive. And I don't know for a fact, but I know that at the school, if there are veterans coming in and they need help in any way, I'd like to be able to have a program for that. So I am working on that now.
Oh, that's fantastic. Lorraine, do you ever stop giving back?
Pardon me?
Do you ever stop giving back?
Why would I stop giving back?
You shouldn't.
No. Consider it giving back. I just don't. I don't know. There was a talk I gave for a charity, and one of the things that came out of it that seems to be following me is they say, you don't have children, and you're still working, and Gordon and I both agree. We work to give. And that's been kind of like a motto. We work to give. We work to give. I mean, we give. I mean, my entire IRA is going to charity. Part of it's going to Reeve Foundation. I mean, I don't. We work to give. We don't need anything more. I don't need another Armani jacket or anything else. I don't need another car. I have a car. Don't need anything else. Don't need anything else. So, and fortunately, we were both on the same page. That was interesting because very often one could feel one way and then the other. But I would say, Gordon, what about this charity? Absolutely, go ahead and do it. Whatever. Yeah. So it just worked, Stephanie. It just worked.
You had an incredible partnership and decades of love, and I absolutely love hearing the way you talk about him. You absolutely light up, and it is just an honor and privilege to talk to you about your love story and the time you spent with him. And I saw at the end of the documentary that you're working to develop this into a longer film, and I want to know, what else is there to tell? What don't you think is in there yet? Well,
I mean, there were lots of things, and we're going to be, actually, the film has been accepted into it was in one film festival in Hollywood about a year ago, to applause and tears, just like I had tears before. And then fast forward, we just got notice that the International Film Festival held in San Francisco is like the most important one, and it's been accepted to be shown there at the end of April. So a film company could pick it up, Netflix or someone could say, you know what, let's develop this. And then they would send a writer to me, because there's so much. I mean, there's really lots to tell that could fill in, because people have said, I want more. When they saw it, I want more. And so if it happens, fine. But if it doesn't, this film that you just saw, this documentary, is just a wonderful, I'm very happy with it. But if that can prompt others to be incentivized, to be inspired, then it's really done a great job by itself. Just that 15 minutes alone. Yeah.
I think that 15 minutes really does help put a new perspective on a
good. I hope so.
Things. And hearing you tell your story and Gordon's story together is, I think, puts a really positive spin on what can be is a life-altering event that sometimes many people take very negatively. So it can happen to anyone at any time, right? So what advice would you give to someone today if they had the same accident today, and they were a couple? What advice would you give to that couple?
Um, well, it depends on their relationship. I mean, that's hard. That's hard to say. But if in fact they are a couple that love each other and this happens, it happens to her or happens to him or happens in another way. It could be cancer. It could be anything. Is to support each other, seek help. I mean, wherever you can. I mean, ask your doctor for referral. Seek help if you have to. I've never had therapy in my life, but people do, and it's very, very supportive. And so, I would suggest that if one feels that they need help, if they feel that they're at their end and that they're at their wits' end, they don't know where to turn, seek professional help. Number one, and that's all I can say. And just support each other and try. Listen to me. This is hard. Try to find the positive side of it, and think about survival. And think about, I'm going to lick this one way or the other, and I will do anything I can, go anywhere I can, talk to anyone I can to find help for whatever the problem is. Because if you put yourself in a cave, if you put yourself in a shell, well, nothing's going to happen. I mean, that shell is hard, and there is no reaching out. You have to be open to everything, in order to help yourselves.
I love that. That's great advice. I see another question that's come through the Q&A. You've talked a lot about Gordon's recovery, and I hear you saying, like, this man was healthy. You were feeding him left and right, going to a lot of parties, and he is not gaining weight. What do you attribute to his health? Was it the therapy that he was going to? Do you attribute anything that he was doing? I know you said that he got up and got into that mental state. Maybe that helped. Was there anything else that you really felt?
We never really thought about weight or dieting ever. I mean, he was not, he had his breakfast and he had his lunch and he had his dinner, but there was never any binge eating, never any box of cookies on his desk. Oh God, no. Never any of that. Did he deprive himself? No. We love to have our drink at night. We love to have our drink every single night. And when we entertained, we have a wine rack and plenty of wine. But he didn't abuse. Again, no cookies, no snacking, no Danish, no bread. I mean, just didn't. Had his breakfast, had his lunch, had his dinner, nothing. And we didn't come in and say, "Oh, I'm hungry. Can you give me?" No, did not. So as a result of that, he really did not gain weight. Yeah. Discipline. Look, discipline is hard, period. It's just hard. And as a result of it, you can just say genes. Maybe it was genes. Now, his mother and father were heavy. I mean, his mother and father were, pretty hefty. But he didn't really gain weight. I mean, he gained around the middle because, again, you're sitting like any of us, even women, we've got a, belly, whatever. But he never really gained weight. No.
That's fantastic. Way to go for him. I wish I could have that problem.
Okay, you don't look like you have a problem, but anyway.
Okay. You see me from here up.
Okay.
That's the benefit of Zoom, right, Lorraine? You get to hide all of the imperfections. So I see that we're running low on time, but I do have a pressing question. You have lived in New York City for, I think, the majority of your relationship, your whole relationship. And
I've lived in Brooklyn. I've lived in Brooklyn my entire life.
It is not exactly what I would say the most accessible place to live. How did you and Gordon navigate that?
Well, when we got married at that church, I found an apartment for 7 years that was flat. That was number one. When we decided to move, I looked for a building that had an elevator, that had an apartment that was accessible. And this is the building built in 1928, so the rooms are very large. And so we moved in many years ago. And then about 20 years ago, we bought the large apartment, which is the one you saw there. And we literally, this is interesting, we literally gutted it and made it totally accessible. Totally. I mean, I would tell anyone how to do that. The toilet is higher, the shower is flat. There's no bench in there. There's no wooden bench. It's a solid, stone bench. And we just did everything, although no one would think it was, but it was so perfect that it was in a magazine. It was absolutely perfect because it was totally accessible to him, totally open. Yeah. And that was great. So that's how we did it. You have to find accessibility. You can't have steps. Can't have steps. And if you do have steps, then you have to have a ramp. And so that becomes an issue. Yeah.
I love it. You took every barrier there could be and you just made it all work. And whether it was travel or your own home and in your romantic life, you always made it work and you kept it positive. Lorraine, this has been such an incredible conversation. I'm
I
so
hope so.
thankful.
I hope so.
I can't thank you enough for being willing to share all of this. I know that it's not easy to always open up your life and share it with the world. And thank you so much.